Dzień dobry, z tej strony Karol Wilczyński z Salam Labu. Bardzo dziękuję za liczne przybycie. Bardzo dziękuję wszystkim, którzy nas oglądają na Facebooku. Przypominam, że jak zawsze ten odcinek naszych live'ów będzie też dostępny na naszym YouTubie i Spotify'u w formie podcastu. Pierwsza część tego spotkania będzie w języku polskim, potem przejdziemy do języka angielskiego i już otwieram sobie ściągę, żeby się na pewno nie pomylić, ale mamy ze sobą 5 wspaniałych gości i gościń. Będzie przede wszystkim z nami Nilofar Ayoubi, afgańska aktywistka i dziennikarka. Jest z nami na szczęście, pomimo krótkich kłopotów z połączeniem, Jagoda Grondecka. Cześć Jagoda, witamy Cię. To jest dziennikarka pracująca teraz w Kabulu. Polecam obie panie śledzić też na Instagramie, bo mają super rzeczy i można śledzić na żywo Afganistan i życie Afganki w Polsce. Jest z nami Safia Rabati, Afganka mieszkająca w Polsce już wiele, wiele lat, dłużej niż ja w Krakowie na pewno. Współpracowniczka też Salam Labu, pracuje razem z nami w projektach wsparcia rodzin, więc ma ogromną wiedzę na temat życia Afgańczyków i tego, co się dzieje z Afgańczykami też tutaj, ale też oczywiście ma rodzinę w Afganistanie, jest na bieżąco. I pan Bismillah mówi, że jest właśnie mama wszystkich Afgańczyków tutaj w Krakowie, bo rzeczywiście za każdym razem część z tych smakołówków, które mamy dzisiaj po spotkaniu, niestety dla tych osób, które nie są online, właśnie przygotowywała Safia. I mamy jeszcze 2 panów, pana Bismillaha Tabana, prawnika i policjanta, który aktualnie pracuje w jednej z korporacji tutaj międzynarodowych w Krakowie. Razem ze swoim bratem Nasratem przybyli do Krakowa w grudniu ubiegłego roku i podobnie jak Nilofar są krótko i też uciekli już z Afganistanu po tym, jak talibowie przejęli po prostu kontrolę nad miastem. Ja zanim tak ostatecznie zacznę, chciałem tylko jedno słowo powiedzieć właśnie o historii tego miejsca, bo jesteśmy w tym momencie w SPA. To jest taka przestrzeń w Krakowie na ulicy Radziwiłłowskiej, do której wszystkich serdecznie zapraszam zawsze. Tutaj mamy taki coworking office, mamy takie miejsce, do którego można przyjść, w którym się dzieją różne wydarzenia, ale tak naprawdę to miejsce, podobnie jak punkt pomocy, który istnieje od początku inwazji rosyjskiej na Ukrainę, zaczął się od Afganistanu. Rok temu razem z Salam Labem wrzuciliśmy w social media takie pytanie i formularz, w którym można było powiedzieć, czy przyjmiesz do swojego domu uchodźców uciekających z Afganistanu. Na to odpowiedziało 300 osób i te same 300 osób było tymi osobami, które 24 lutego zaczęły przyjmować te rodziny, które pojawiły się na dworcu w Krakowie i do których my zadzwoniliśmy. Czy jesteście Państwo chętni, żeby przyjąć dzisiaj te rodziny, które dzisiaj się pojawiły i szukają dachu nad głową bardzo interwencyjnie. Dzięki tym 300 osobom my byliśmy w stanie ruszyć z taką pomocą mieszkaniową, która w tym momencie obejmuje tysiące osób i dzięki takiemu niespodziewanemu małemu krokowi udało się rzeczywiście bardzo duże programy mieszkaniowe, nie tylko na rzecz Ukraińców, ale również na rzecz Afgańczyków i na rzecz wszystkich uciekających przed przemocą, prześladowaniami czy wojną. Jesteśmy w stanie tutaj wspierać w Krakowie. Także chciałem też to zaznaczyć, że właśnie historia tego miejsca też się zaczęła rok temu. Tak jak mówiłem, ja zacznę w języku polskim i może zadam pierwsze pytanie Jagodzie, zanim cię wyrzuci Jagoda, bo pewnie przyjdzie ten czas, kiedy się pożegnamy nagle. Jaka jest aktualna sytuacja w Afganistanie? I też ostatnio wrzuciłaś super informacje na temat protestu kobiet. To było bardzo inspirujące, to ich wystąpienie, to ich działanie. Czy mogłabyś troszkę powiedzieć właśnie o tym proteście, o tym, co cię spotkało i też jak ty, żyjąc w Afganistanie ostatnie miesiące, no jak tam jest na miejscu?
Dzięki, Karol. Jezu, odpowiedź na wszystkie te pytania jest niesamowicie skomplikowane i wielowymiarowe, ale postaram się to jakby możliwie najlepiej przybliżyć. Zacznę może od protestu kobiet. To był kolejny protest w ciągu ostatniego roku w Afganistanie, kiedy protestowały właśnie kobiety. One domagają się przede wszystkim otwarcia szkół dla dziewcząt, ponieważ w większości kraju, poza nielicznymi dystryktami, głównie na północy, wszystkie ponadpodstawowe szkoły dla dziewcząt, czyli powyżej 6 klasy, pozostają cały czas zamknięte. Tu się na początku, tu jakby powodów podaje się całe mnóstwo. Na początku rzekomo chodziło o mundurki, potem o program nauczania. Ostatnio usłyszeliśmy, że to kwestie kulturowe, później jeszcze, że religijne i że to musi dojść do konsensusu pomiędzy jakby lokalną starszyzną a uczonymi religijnymi, ponieważ według talibów jest kilku, którym ta koncepcja dziewcząt chodzących do szkoły średniej się nie podoba. No i kobiety domagają się też tych zdobyczy ostatnich 20 lat, czyli przede wszystkim ich dostępu do rynku pracy, ponieważ zdecydowana większość kobiet, która wcześniej pracowała, to i tak był niewielki odsetek kobiet w Afganistanie, z tego też trzeba sobie zdawać sprawę. Teraz tych prac została pozbawiona. Bardzo wiele kobiet pracowało w administracji rządowej. Ona zatrudniała w samym Kabulu tysiące kobiet. One te wszystkie prace straciły. Talibowie oczywiście utrzymują, że to jest wszystko tymczasowe, że to jest tylko do czasu stworzenia odpowiednich warunków. No jednak jest oczywiste, że na przykład nie będzie już kobiet na pewno na żadnych stanowiskach dyrektorskich, kierowniczych, które wcześniej z powodzeniem zajmowały. I to jest przede wszystkim to właśnie, czego kobiety się domagają. I tak jak podczas poprzednich protestów, tak teraz ten też został bardzo brutalnie rozpędzony. Talibowie zaczęli strzelać w powietrze, aktywistki zaczęły uciekać. Oni potem jeszcze krążyli właśnie po okolicznych sklepach, w których one się poukrywały, starając się je odnaleźć. No i mam niestety informację o tym, że pukali do drzwi niektórych z tych aktywistek. Nie wszystkie z nich były w domach. Jednej został na przykład aresztowany ojciec, został już wypuszczony, ale zażądano od niego, żeby wyjawił im, gdzie jest jego córka, pod groźbą kolejnego aresztowania. Więc to jest taki rodzaj aktywności w tym momencie, który rzeczywiście bardzo naraża bezpieczeństwo nie tylko tych kobiet, które protestują, ale też tak naprawdę całych ich rodzin. Więc to się wiąże naprawdę z wielką odwagą, wielką determinacją, taką myślę, że graniczącą wręcz z desperacją tak naprawdę, ponieważ one po prostu nie widzą dla siebie żadnego innego wyjścia. A jeśli chodzi ogólnie o sytuację w Afganistanie, taki temat numer jeden i problem numer jeden, który się wysuwa na pierwszym miejscu zawsze podczas każdej rozmowy, praktycznie z każdym Afgańczykiem, niezależnie od tego, kim on jest i gdzie mieszka, to jest oczywiście sytuacja gospodarcza. Ponieważ po przejęciu władzy przez talibów Afganistan został obłożony sankcjami. Stany Zjednoczone zamroziły rezerwy finansowe w obcych walutach Centralnego Banku Afganistanu, The Afghanistan Bank. I dzisiaj zresztą Wall Street Journal podał, powołując się na źródła w administracji Joe Bidena, że te środki nie zostaną odmrożone, ani dolara. No i oczywiście skutki tego załamania gospodarczego ponoszą przede wszystkim tak zwani zwykli Afgańczycy. Oczywiście w Afganistanie przed 15 sierpnia tego roku też sytuacja była bardzo trudna, bardzo wysoki był wskaźnik ubóstwa. Jednak teraz te rodziny, które wcześniej były ubogie, znalazły się w jeszcze gorszym położeniu. Pojawiła się też taka nowa klasa ubogich, czyli taka poprzednia klasa średnia, ludzie właśnie pracujący na przykład w jakiejś administracji państwowej, w biurach, w prywatnych przedsiębiorstwach, w szpitalach, w szkołach, którzy albo te prace stracili, albo przedsiębiorstwa zostały pozamykane, albo pracują dalej, tylko że nie otrzymują wynagrodzenia, albo nie otrzymują go przynajmniej regularnie i nie w takiej wysokości, jak to miało miejsce wcześniej. Więc mamy też całą taką właśnie grupę ludzi, która została zepchnięta w ubóstwo praktycznie z dnia na dzień, tak naprawdę. Właśnie to byli poprzedni urzędnicy, nauczyciele, lekarze, pielęgniarki. Chociaż tak naprawdę oczywiście wszyscy na każdym absolutnie szczeblu tej drabiny gospodarczej odczuwają bardzo skutki sankcji i to jest też coś, o czym Afgańczycy mówią praktycznie jednym głosem, niezależnie od ich zapatrywania na władzę talibów, na poprzednią władzę, na republikę. Mówią o tym, że czują się po prostu karani przez Zachód, karani przez Stany Zjednoczone za władzę, jakich oni sami sobie przecież nawet nie wybrali. I podkreślają, że nie były to przecież pieniądze ani prezydenta Ganiego, ani też nie są to pieniądze talibów, tylko że to są właśnie rezerwy Afgańczyków, to są często majątki ich życia, do których oni teraz nie mają dostępu, nie mogą na przykład nawet wypłacić ich z banku.
Jagoda, niestety teraz mamy problem jakiś na łączach. Bardzo źle cię było słychać. Spróbuj jeszcze raz. Niestety spróbuj podłączyć słuchawki, bo wydaje mi się, że to jest problem z mikrofonem. Jeśli masz Okej. Talibowie się interesują. Safia, to może, bo dużo razy rozmawialiśmy o talibach i wydaje mi się, że możesz mieć troszkę inną opinię niż Jagoda. Jakbyś to przedstawiła właśnie swoje spojrzenie na te kwestie talibów i na to, jak powinniśmy ewentualnie pomagać, tak? Tutaj z Polski. Czy nie zagraża nam to, że jednak uznamy ich władzę, że jeśli wyślemy im te pieniądze, że jeśli przekażemy, to będzie trudne?
Jest bardzo trudno na ten temat cokolwiek powiedzieć z racji tego, że dla mnie osobiście sytuacja, jaka naszła do Afganistanem, to jest wstyd międzynarodowy. Obchodzimy dzisiaj, dla mnie osobiście, to jest Dzień Wstydu Międzynarodowego. Dzień, w którym przez 20 lat ponad 40 krajów świata w Afganistanie stacjonowało żołnierzy, po czym w ostateczności Biden mówi, że przecież 17 000 talibów, żołnierzy afgańskich nie poradzili sobie. Ja się pytam, tyle żołnierzy, nie tylko polskich, ale z całego 40 krajach, dlaczego sobie nie poradzili z talibami? To oznacza, że oni tak naprawdę sami chcieli tych talibów, żeby byli w Afganistanie. Przez 20 lat ich popierali. I potem za plecami rządu z nimi uzgadniali, w jaki sposób mają przyjść, brać władzę w rękach. I dzisiaj my mamy się zastanowić nad tym, czy im dalej pomagać, czy nie. Oni dostają pieniądze. Grube pieniądze dostają co miesiąc talibowie, ale to, że nie dają społeczeństwo, to, że zapowiedzieli, że przez 5 lat, po 5 latach już nie będzie ani jednego Hazara w Afganistanie, ani Tadżyka, o tym też Ameryka i świat wie. Dlaczego nic nie robią? Ja osobiście na to nie mam lekarstwa, żeby powiedzieć, proszę bardzo, talibom pomagamy, bo Afgańczycy będą spokojni. Nie. Gdyby pieniądze poszło do ręki talibów, w dalszym ciągu tylko oni mają dla siebie i w dalszym ciągu będą torturować resztę narodów, które są w Afganistanie, a niczego dobrego dla Afgańczyków nie zrobią. To widać przez cały ten rok. Do niczego konkretnego nie doszli. Według mnie ja bym im ani grosza nie dała. Nie wiem, może jest innego zdania Jagoda, bo akurat przyszła.
Jagoda, nie wiem, czy słyszałaś wszystko? O, to chyba jest po naszej stronie w takim razie. Niestety bardzo słabo cię słyszymy, Jagoda. A spróbuj wyłączyć, włączyć mikrofon i z powrotem się połączyć. Okej. Jagoda, sugeruję, spróbuj jeszcze raz się wyłączyć i włączyć po prostu z Zooma i może to się poprawi. Bardzo cię przepraszam, ale wydaje się, że problem jest, nie wiemy gdzie w sumie. Gdzieś na połączeniu. Okej, Jagoda się jeszcze raz z nami połączy. So I will ask in English because we were talking about the Talibans and about how to support Afghans despite their presence, because the US government is criticized over keeping the money reserves of the Afghan government. Yeah, but still they give nothing out of it. And on the other hand, Ms. Safia said that there is this, that the problem is Talibans will still torture people and they will still...
On the other hand, Europe is sending millions to Afghanistan, to Taliban. So the fund which is reserved by the US, that's not that big of a fund that we are speaking, and that's not the Taliban's money, of course. That's the public's money, and that should go to the public. But if at this moment US releases this fund, this means that this will go to the Taliban's pockets, which we don't want. No one inside Afghanistan wants these aid to flow like this, but through Taliban, because nothing is reaching to the people. Jagoda is on the ground. She's seeing the situation of people. Of course, to places where she traveled, I haven't been able to travel even in the past 20 years. This is true. I accept that we didn't have very secure country or government, but at least we had something. But it's not going to change anything if you release the funds, because there's already millions going on. Every month, at least 30 million is going to Afghanistan. And where is this money going? Nobody knows. From the families I know in Afghanistan and with the families I have been in contact, people are selling their organs. People are selling their children's. There's a huge rise in the girl child, market. There's a market for girl child. They sell their daughters even as young as, even the night they are born. I have been working with this NGO, Too Young to It, to fight this girl child market, or at least to stop child marriages. There are families who are suffering. There's a mother in Kabul, but she is in the IDP camp. She had to sell 3 daughters as young as 10 years. And she had no other way but to sell her daughters to provide a food for them, but which means that selling these young girls to forced marriages to older men, which equals to destroying their lives forever. And this woman, after selling her 3 daughters, she was devastated. We had to admit her to mental asylum. So which part of my country should I describe to you? Which pain should I cry here in 1 year? Last year, this time I was a successful person. I had my own businesses. I created job for women. This year I am a refugee. I am not allowed to go back. I am a traitor in the Taliban's list because I organized protests. And my family is a traitor. They attack my family. They attack their family. We cannot go back to our country. Our houses, our properties are taken or seized by the government of Taliban. Though they are not a government, they're just a terrorist group for us. And we cannot say a single word to that because we don't have any right to that country. You can go on Twitter and check the easiest way to check. If we post any protest from women's side, you will see a lot of Taliban Twitter handles saying that, oh, you are doing this for visa. Go and take your visa. How many more they will kick out of the country? How many more of us should leave that country? Do you know already Afghanistan is left with the brain drain? There is no educated mind left. We have lost our professors, we have lost our generals, we have lost our prosecutors, judges. And now they're forcing women to sit inside homes and send their male family member to join their places, even if that male family member is illiterate. But a woman cannot work in a government office. This is just 1 year we are speaking. Just about yesterday, there was a protest which Jagoda covered. You may have seen it in her profile. The girl who protested, they're already scattered. Some of them are in jail. The woman who organized this protest, she is in hiding. And Taliban are going door to door, torturing other young girls, asking for her address. She knew that there is no way back. She knew that she has to go through torture in jail, but she is fighting. She's not fighting for the reserved funds. She's fighting for her rights. So I just want the world to know that do not mix these two things. We are fighting for our freedom. We are not fighting for the aid money. We are not fighting for the project money. Our women deserve this. They have fought 20 years. We started from our household. We started this fight with our fathers, brothers, uncles, husbands. And today we are where we are. And then we had to go back just because US decided that it's done. They're done with us. So we are human beings. It's a 40 million population country. You cannot just decide that, okay, today I'm going to bomb Afghanistan and go into Afghanistan and show these people dreams and put millions and billions of dollars in this country, even though most of this fund would go back to states, of course. But then after 20 years, they decide, okay, we are tired. We cannot do this. So we will run in the middle of the night without informing the government. Let them fight with the Taliban. Let them face whatever they have to face. This was not what we deserved. We thought US was our strong ally. We thought we will have at least a little bit time to prepare. We thought there would be at least an interim government. None of that happened. We were caught in surprise. Mr. Taban here was in the government. Even he didn't know what's happening. Is this how you work? Is this how you go to a country and leave it destroyed like this? I don't understand this. This is beyond my understanding. I don't know. Maybe I am dumb? Or maybe they are playing us.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for this event of the Salam Lab. Przepraszam, ja nie mówię bardzo po polsku, po angielsku. I don't know, it's okay for all of you in English or not? You need to translate in the Polish also, because we are here to know about the Afghanistan. It's okay, English for all of this? Okay, thank you. I think in Poland it means yes, yeah? Okay. I think we can go back in the history. When in the 2002, the United States and other countries, international countries, they came to Afghanistan. It was starting a big hope for the people of Afghanistan. We thinking it is finish the war and we starting a new life in Afghanistan. Because when I born, it was the war time with the SSR, with the Russia. When I come up, it was war, the civil war. For example, in the school, now you and your children, when you check it, maybe it's for Taliban. When you checking your books for countings of mathematics, it's very nice example. For example, there is apple plus other apple, it means 2 apples. But in our times, in our school, it was 1 gun plus other gun, it means 2 guns. It means our school, our community, it was very, a challenge community with the civil war and this war times. When the 2002 international community, the Poland's army, other countries' army came to Afghanistan, it's changed the page. We starting the new life in Afghanistan. We hope very big for the future of Afghanistan. But unfortunately, after 20 years and last year, when our alliance, international community leave behind Afghanistan peoples, it's a start back to zero. Now it's again Taliban. Now it's again in the school. Now it's again in the community. It is extremism and the Taliban's idea. It's gun close to gun. There is not talking people about the floor and apple and good example. how you think those people who make a good idea and a good hope for the futures, now it's alone. Now they are alone. Now they are under control of the terrorist group. It is a big question for our side and international community like you, from the governments. What was the result of 20 years fighting in Afghanistan? It was for democracy, it was for human rights, it was for women's rights. If yes, but what is the result? Now what's going on in Afghanistan? Now, unfortunately, the leaders of the international community, the politics, they have planned to take a photo with the leader of the Taliban with a smiling face. It is the result of 20 years fighting with the terrorism. It is the result of the 20 years fighting with the Taliban groups and Al-Qaeda and other groups. Absolutely no. It is not our hope. It's not your hope. Because in the past 20 years, you sent money from your tax for Afghan peoples, for the development of Afghanistan. But it is now come back to zero. We need to ask for politics in your country, in our country. What's going on? Poland lost 42 young soldiers in Afghanistan. But what is the results? 42 young soldiers, it is just from Poland. More than thousands, it is for all the international community. And just the Afghan police, we lost it 43,000 soldiers in the last 20 years for democracy. I lost a lot of classmates, my colleagues, who was 20 years with me, who was 5 years in the university in my one classroom. But we lost it now for democracy, for women's rights, for freedoms. But it's the result. Now, Jagoda is in Kabul. Now girls, they cannot go to school. Maybe you have information. School is closed. The door of school is closed for the girls and women because of the Taliban idea. But nobody talking about this in the international community. They are just closing their eyes and they're lobbying for the Taliban. And they're lobbying for the terrorism. Now we are free here. We can speak. In Afghanistan, you can't speak about the regime of the Taliban. When you're going out to the street, they're beating you. They're putting you in the jail. They're killing you. Just in the last year, from August 2021 until now, we have a report from Human Rights Commission of Afghanistan. The Afghan peoples, Taliban killed 1,400 Afghans in this 1 year. It is 1,400 people like me and like you. In the Western country, if you're lasting 2 or 1, all the government is down. They're talking why we losing 2 or 1. Here in example in Paris and London or other cities. But in Afghanistan, every day, they're killing people. Nobody talking about this. Nobody thinking about this. Is their living human or not? Yes. They are human, but they are the middle of game between powerful countries. Now in Ukraine is like Afghanistan. Now the Ukraine people is in the middle of these games, as Afghanistan. Now in the Ukraine is 1 year. It's close to 1 year. But in Afghanistan is 42 years war. Well, how you managing this one? And the close to 1 year war in Ukraine, now Ukraine is empty from the people of the civilian peoples. A lot of Ukraine refugees in Poland, in other countries, in US, in Canada, in Australia. 5 million is in Poland. But in our country is 42 years war. It's neat to think about this, why this situation is going on in the part of this world in this century. In this century, we need to think about the big problems like climate change or like other things. But in Afghanistan, the people think just for hours and days' life. They don't have any opportunity to think about the future. Our friends just finished a research in the block analysis network. They just sent it me. They have interview with the hundreds of Afghans asking, do you have plan to go out? 100% they said yes. I have plan to go out from these countries. It's easy for people who leave his family and his homeland and the cities to going other countries? No. The refugee situation is not a very easy situation. It's not our choice. It is because of war. It is because of the wrong politics. It's because of this, the terrorism and extremism. Now we are here. I would like to thank you, the Poland government and the Poland peoples who are helping me and my family in the bad situation in the last year. I'm safe here. But thousands and millions of Afghans is under the control of the Taliban. Now we can say thank you, Salam Lab, to supporting the Afghan refugees here. But there is in Europe thousands Afghan refugees who don't have one clothes. They are still in a park. They are still in jungles. They don't have any opportunity to be in one shelters. You can check France, you can check Italy, you can check in some different countries. There is a lot of refugees. You can check in Turkey, in Greece. Every month we have news. Iranian soldiers or Turkish soldiers, they killed one Afghan refugees in the border. Every month we have news. Some of the refugees from Afghanistan, they are in the way of the Greece, between Greece and Turkey in the water. They died his life. It's not easy to leave your house. You have house in Kabul. Normal life, with job, with everything. But now we are here as a refugee. Yes, it's good. All world is our house. We can manage, we can stay together, all world is human. But the refugee situation is just the refugee name is very, 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 very strong name for the negative sides. As Ms. Nilofar mentions, a lot of Afghans, families, because they don't have money, they don't have food, they're selling his daughters. Maybe it's not unbelievable for you. You are very safe. But it is true in Afghanistan. It's happening every day. because of the Taliban, because of the terrorist group. On the other hand, some politics in Europe country and some different countries, they're lobbying for the Taliban. They're lobbying for what? They're lobbying to support the Taliban to keep close this call for the girls. They're lobbying for the Taliban to beating women in the street. They're lobbying for the Taliban to share, to export extremism in all the world. They're lobbying for what? But still they're lobbying, unfortunately, the TVs and the newspapers and the social medias and everything, they're still lobbying for the Taliban. Oh, we can dialogue with the Taliban. The Taliban they changed this face. No, the Taliban is terrorist group. Afghanistan is under control of the terrorist group. You can check the list of the blacklist of the international UN. The Taliban is not in this list, the terrorist group list. Why? They said how many people they have to kill to be in the list. You can check the Poland governments and other governments, the blacklist or like this. There is not in the blacklist of the terrorists. They're waiting for what? They're waiting to killing all the Afghans. After that, they will be terrorists. You can check the announcement, official announcement of the governments in Europe. They didn't call it a terrorist group for the Taliban. What means? But if they want, they can easy calling some groups as a terrorist because of the politics. It's not because of the reality of the situation. I think we need to talk about this, not about just Afghanistan, all the terrorist group in the world. It is the enemy of humanity. It is the enemy of all. When the Taliban, it be in the Poland, it's the enemy of you. It's enemy of all the humanity, not just Afghanistan. Yes, we are in the first line of this situation, but they are still enemy of all human in the world, across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can talk about a certain situation which happened to Jagoda, and we have Nasrat with us, who is also a journalist, and freedom of speech is also something which concerns human rights. Jagoda, jesteś z nami?
Tak, jestem.
O, znakomicie. Jagoda, I will ask you to speak in English. It's a specific question, so Afghans watching us can also understand. Could you describe the situation which happened personally to you, what Taliban did to you during and after the protest of women on Saturday?
Yeah, of course I can describe, although if that's possible, I wanted also after to add a few words about the current situation in Afghanistan, because I think there are a few points that generally we have been missing as a press, as the world in the last 12 months. So let me start with the protest. So yesterday after the protest, I got arrested among some other journalists. I was threatened with a gun in my head to give my phone to the Taliban officer. Then I got detained. I spent there 9 hours in detention with 2 other European journalists. After a diplomatic intervention, we eventually got released. So this have been happening for quite a while, and is definitely very discouraging. Such attempts to intimidate foreign journalists by detaining them, arresting, threatening, or trying, for example, to give our sources to the Taliban, which has happened to a few of my colleagues here in Kabul. Definitely, like the freedom of press and the freedom of speech in Afghanistan is one of the biggest losses of the one last year. But yes, speaking about the losses, I think our great problem with grasping the current situation is the fact that in the last 20 years, the only or mostly Afghan voices that we have been listening to in the mainstream media were the voices of Afghans who this way or another, and I'm not saying this is something bad, but benefited from the American intervention, from the war, from the occupation. Some benefited in the financial way. For some, some made some nice careers, political and different careers. Of course, there were very big, very positive sides of the situation. Lots of women, for the first time in their life, got a chance to educate and to make a career in basically any field. And that was great. But we have been never hearing, and obviously we didn't do that because it was completely against the propaganda of success that US, the Western coalition, wanted us to believe in the 20 years that the war is getting in the better and better direction. The voices from Afghans who had completely different experience of the last 20 years of foreign forces presence in their country. And you don't have to search very far away. It's enough to drive 1 hour from Kabul to the Wardak province, and you have plenty of villages there full of people where you can't find one family who didn't experience losing a loved one in either an airstrike or a night raid, who was not killed or abducted by either Western or Afghan forces, who was not being mocked by the Afghan police or Afghan army. And as much as now the Taliban definitely are taking their revenge, you can see that they definitely have some of them have very, what do you say? They perceive people living in the cities, like in Kabul, Mazar, Herat, as enemies because they see in them the supporters of the previous godless regime. But I think it was pretty much the same with Afghans from the cities and Afghans living in the villages, especially in the Pashtun parts of the country. These people were telling me many times that because of the way they dress, because of the way they wear themselves, because of the birds they wear or whatever, they have been often being mocked as Taliban supporters, as Al-Qaeda sympathizers, or whoever. And they have not felt freely, they have not felt safe for the last 20 years in their own country. For many Afghans, 15th August was the first day in their life when the war was over. There was a man, just a shopkeeper in Kabul, who told me that this one last year, as much as economically was very bad for him and his family was suffering greatly because of that, he told me this was the most peaceful year he has ever experienced in his life. And I think this is very important, that we also acknowledge these voices, that we accept the fact that there are Afghans who have that perspective, and this is also a very valid perspective. This has been one of the reasons why the Taliban are in power now.
I'm sorry to cut you. I'm also a part of the journalist community of Afghanistan. So the things that you are mentioned, how many years before that you have traveled in Afghanistan before? How many years, before?
How many people?
No. Have you before traveled to Afghanistan during the Afghanistan government, Islamic Republic of Afghanistan?
Yes.
If a little said that, why you cannot travel to the other part of Afghanistan during that time?
Yes, it was definitely much more difficult and much more dangerous, at least for us foreign journalists.
Yes.
Because of the Taliban, obviously.
Yeah, the Taliban. Absolutely. Now the Taliban have the control of the country. Why they should make problem for you to traveling around the country? And why they should make problem for the people who are living in the village?
Well, I am just saying what people in the different parts of Afghanistan have been telling me. I think honestly that this is one of the, if not the biggest actually, but this is one of the most crucial problems for today's Afghanistan. that as long as we don't acknowledge these voices that we might not necessarily like, I see very little way and very little space for any political reconciliation that the country very badly needs. Also, I don't think we actually have the luxury to just ignore the Taliban, to pretend that they exist on their like de facto government, like controlling pretty much all the country, which has not been the case of the last two governments in Afghanistan. Of course, there might be different opinions if to recognize the Taliban or not.
Yes, I think
I don't want really to express my opinion. I think as a journalist, that's not really my job. But let me just say, we have been trying different approaches, both in the 90s and now, and none of them so far brought any positive results.
Okay, I want to speak after that if she want to continue and things. Dzień dobry. Hello everyone. Всем привет. My name is Nasrat Taban. I have worked as a journalist in Afghanistan. So as Jagoda said that she has not expressed their idea. But before that, I want to ask the audience here that anyone watched the Charles Wilson War movies in Netflix. Maybe if they not, they should watch this. And
what's
also,
the title?
Yeah, the Charles Wilson Wars. So they will understand how the 24 years before the national communities are coming to Afghanistan and how the Afghan war started. So one thing that as a journalist student, as a peace and war journalist student that I understand according to the lectures from the professors and university, the journalists are going in Afghanistan in the wrong way because you are, for example, I'm asking like this question. You are going like in front of the Taliban and asking the people, the government of the Taliban is good or fine, you are in the peace or not? They said yes. So if you making this survey according to internet, making a Google form and other stuff, this situation will be changing 100%. Why this doing? Because in front of the Taliban, you cannot express your idea, that is good or that's bad. So when you are asking pupils in internet, in Google form or other survey stuff, they are completely answering negative things for you as the result of many researches showing that. So for example, if the area that many other powerful soldiers are there, we're going to ask, for example, during the Soviet Union, SSR, the peoples who are in the territory of the Soviet Union, most of them are like the system of the Soviet Union or the communism. So when they're gathering together, they were just saying, no, the system is not good, everything is bad like this. So why they are not sharing their idea in the public? Because they cannot do that in the public, because there was a system to control them and block them. So now in Afghanistan also the same things. The journalists are going and asking the people if many YouTubers are going, many travelers are going. I'm not counting them as a journalist, or many other journalists are going. They are asking that, okay, in front of the camera, in front of the or podcast recording and things, asking if the situation is good. What do you expect to say from them? Yet they say yes because of their safety.
I would really appreciate...
let me continue my...
Jagoda, to dajmy jeszcze dokończyć i...
And also, as Jagoda said, the Taliban officer, according to the word of officer is saying for the person who is doing law enforcement in the countries. Taliban's doing the law enforcement role in Afghanistan? Thank you.
Jagoda?
Okay, I would very much appreciate you not implying how, in what way I do my job, and not implying that people tell me certain things because I ask them in front of the Taliban or with a camera on the recording, because I am here on the ground and I know how to do my work. Thank you. And just like, I think like that's necessary. That's exactly the problem which I was speaking about. This is like inability of some Afghans just to acknowledge that their very countrymen might have different ideas and very much different opinions, and now trying to blame it. Obviously, there are people in the country that have also like different idea about the Taliban and they are afraid to speak about it. I totally, absolutely know about it. But I think like as long as you will be trying like just to say everyone who is praising Taliban for that or another reason is doing that just because of fear, or you as a journalist like have no clue how to talk to them, so they tell you bullshit. I mean, it's a no way to go, because this is exactly one of the reasons why the country is now in the very situation that it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Jagoda. It's good you're in Afghanistan. It's good you're in the ground. I know the situation of Afghanistan, but I think it's one of the problems in Afghanistan. It is censor of the media. The Taliban wants to share this picture from Afghanistan with the journalists and other media what they want. When you're asking to department of the Taliban, I need to go to Maidan Wardak or other province. They said, okay, you can go to this province, you can contact with these guys for example, for security. But it's not for security, it is for control of you, control of the media, control of the journalists.
Excuse me, like, are you now another man trying to tell me how I'm doing my job?
No, I'm not saying for
because
you.
Trust me, I know it.
I'm not saying for you, Ms. Jagoda. I just thank you for you. This other, after this, thank you is other program. It's not going for you. It is just, I mentioned, I sharing my experience with the colleagues, with the ones who are here and who watching these programs. Okay, you can do your job where best. You can lobby for Taliban, you can clean Taliban, you can write Taliban, and everything. It's your job. You are free. You know better everyone your job. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. In the real situation of Afghanistan, we just done one research yesterday. We interviewed with the hundreds Afghans from 8 provinces, from Kandahar, from Ghazni, from Kabul, from Maidan Wardak, from Balkh, from Bamyan, from Daikundi, and from Parwan. These 124 Afghans, 100% of these people, they said, we think the country, the situation of country is going wrong. I have this research. You can check Block Analysis Network. Just results. Now the OMO TV, one reports, 66 civilian peoples, the Taliban kills 66 civilian peoples just in one district. It calls Andarab. It's located in Baghlan province. 66 civilian peoples, including children, women, and men, just in one district. Just 1 week ago, there was 3 suicide bombers against the Hazara community in Afghanistan. They killed close to 100 Hazara and Shia peoples in the mosque, in the streets. They just killing. We have a news here. The Amo TV in the Kandahar province, and just in the 4 months, the peoples found 414. It means 14 persons died in the Kandahar. It's Achakzai peoples, because the Achakzai, it's against the Taliban. We have this report in the media, independent media. Just it's released yesterday. In the 1 week, in the Nangarhar province, the peoples found 6 body of the peoples in the streets. In the Nangarhar province, in the west of Afghanistan. You can talk. Where is the Ali Azizi? One woman's police officers from Herat. It is 1 year in the jail of the Taliban because she was one member of Afghan National Police in the past governments. You can ask, where is 11 girls from Bamyan who protest against the Taliban? You can ask, where is Monisa Mubarak, one of the protester women after the 2 days ago protests? You can ask, you can just check in the Googles, what is the situation of the journalists in Afghanistan? Afghan journalists, not the foreign journalists. Afghan journalists, the reality of Afghan journalists in Afghanistan. You can see the TV of Afghanistan, the women journalists, they have to use these masks in the TV. It's a finish the pandemic times. Because the law of the Taliban. You can go to Kabul for the schools of the girls, not just in the Kabul, across the country. They are closed. It is 1 year. High school of the girls, it's closed across the country. What is the security? Yes, we can move from Kabul to Ghazni, from Kabul to Kandahar safely. Because now there is not terrorist group as a Taliban. Because they are in the power. You can move it. But you are not mentally set. You can say the Taliban's asking the women who was work at the governments, they asking them, please send your husband or brothers to your positions. Because you are not allowed to work. It is safety for women. It is reality. Or not. You're just fighting the Taliban and killing the Taliban. Thank you.
Thank you. Nilofar, you wanted to add something. Unfortunately, Jagoda she wrote me that the internet is off. She's fighting for it, but...
So I will just want to add, because I am quite familiar with Jagoda's work, from before August 15 and now since a year she's in Afghanistan. She's been on and off in Afghanistan. I understand where she comes from and why she says that there are two sides of the stories. It has always been like this. Even in the previous government, people like me, independent, were nowhere to see among these activists who were always on the TV. Taban worked for me, with me. He was my colleague. He knows how much I have worked, but nobody else would recognize me because I was not in a certain circle. The circle of mafia who used to run in the previous government, and you would only see few faces. And any foreign journalist who would come to Afghanistan, they would first go and meet these faces, and they would tell the story and the narrative which these faces will tell these reporters. We have a green zone in Kabul, which will never change. Even in Taliban right now, it's still the same for the foreigners. As you saw Jagoda coming online, just like she's in Europe from her home. But for us, we would not dare to wear such clothes even inside our home right now in this situation past 1 year, because at any moment, Taliban can knock in our door, break the door, and then that would be the end of our lives. That inside your home, you're wearing top. This is a big no. But in this green area where Jagoda and a lot of other journalists live, the cafe shops are on. They can walk without a scarf. They can sit. They can have a coffee. They can have night outs. Even the parties are still on. But why? Because Taliban are trying to trick them. They are trying to say that, yes, we don't mind the freedom for the foreigners, but do you even see what's happening to Afghans? Do you even, yesterday, now imagine Jagoda and her colleagues being a foreign journalist. If they can be detained and they can be questioned, and for the next time, God knows what will happen to them, God forbid. Now imagine the situation of Afghan journalists. I shared a picture of a young boy right after yesterday's protest. His back was purple because he was beaten. Why did you attend the protest just to make a report? No, I cannot send my reporters on the ground I'm not able to find a woman doctor to give the interview for me of her situation because she's too scared. And my male colleague journalist on the ground is too afraid to approach that woman because if Taliban recognizes him, it will be the end of the world for him and for the woman. But if I ask a foreign journalist friend that can you interview a woman for me, it will be very easy. My reporter cannot reach Zabiullah Mujahid for any remarks because he's Afghan, he's local. But if any reporter from the foreign media just send the message that we need you live, he will be there in 5 seconds. So there are many things that they show a different face to the foreign media, and they're different with us. Of course, I agree with Jagoda that in the past 20 years, a lot of atrocities have been done to the rural areas. 2 years ago, Taban is also witness that 2 of my uncles, with their wives and grandchildren, was hit by a US drone. All dead. Nothing left from those 2 families. Why? Because the US drone thought that, okay, because he was traveling from one village to another village to a mourning ceremony, they were Taliban. In that week, 3 other families were targeted the same way. These atrocities happened. We are not saying it didn't happen. But it doesn't mean that everything was black and white. No. In the major part of Afghanistan, there was development. There was life. People was trying. Even though we had a corrupt government, even though we had people, as Jagoda said, who benefited from the situation, who are still benefiting from the situation. But the problem is the foreign media never gives platform to me or to people like me. Yeah, so this is today's journalist, you can see. Yeah. So, yeah. So they can break an Afghan journalist's head. Nothing happens because he's an Afghan and it will vanish in a thin air. This is not just journalists. This is women activists. These are women we are talking about 20 million women, you know? And 27% of Afghanistan is consistent of youth and women. We can say that. So these are the 2 sides of the coins that we need to see. Of course, Jagoda is not wrong. But let's face the fact that there's always this manipulation game. It was in the previous government, it is in the current de facto terrorist government. And we have to see beyond that. This is the second attack on Jagoda, as far as I know. And I'm very, very concerned for the third one. And I don't want her to face that. She's not the only one. Another Polish friend of mine had to go through the same situation. Another woman was taken to custody. Everything was deleted. She was forced to tweet in favor of Taliban. And then she was deported from Afghanistan. Now she's speaking up. But it's too late. We had BBC journalists in Afghanistan yesterday standing and reporting live on 1 year of 15 August. But he was surrounded by Talib soldiers. And he had made them like we have the background of our country in a carpet. And those Taliban was background of his report. This is not how it's happened. Bring women. Last year, on the New Year, our TV was full of color. There were dance, there were music, there were women, there were everything. This year, only coward faces and we could see only 2 eyes. So these are also the reality. I know in Kabul, inside Kabul, in the big cities, Taliban are now trying to, they are committing crimes, but they are not doing it in front of the journalists. People are missing. Inside Kabul, I think it's Parwan, in Khairkhana, people of Panjshir are being hunted down. They are being dragged from their home. They just see to your face, oh, you look Panjshiri, let's go. And then the next day, you find a dead body. These are happening. This is not myth. But as I said, there is a part of Afghanistan which is still, the grass is greener on this side because a lot of foreigners and journalists and the tourism is blooming in Afghanistan right now. I don't know why. But these are only just for a show.
Thank you.
Can I add something? So I don't want to like talk with the word of Jagoda or others, just as a Afghan journalists have experience in Afghanistan. I had a professor from Michigan State University. The first day he asked me, where are you from? I said, I'm from Afghanistan. He said, Afghanistan is the bolding title of the news. Many journalists are going to Afghanistan, writing from Afghanistan, reporting from Afghanistan. Their article be in the top of New York Times and selling with good money. It's a good income for people who are going to Afghanistan and writing about Afghanistan and taking their money from the publisher for the other news agencies. So on the other hand, as we know that the new world is the cycle of 3 things. The war country, the post-war country, and the safe country. My generation and the other panel's generation are not feel it or haven't been in the part of the safe war, the safe area in Afghanistan. So mostly when we were born was in the war. After that, it was post-war country. It's still the feeling of the war was in Afghanistan. It's still everything was like the history of the war. People were hoping to remove this history or this this later idea from the mind that we had a very difficult days, but we are going to a very good days. But unfortunately, after the Taliban comes to Afghanistan, the collapse of the government, everything's changed. Now, more than 100 medias closed in Afghanistan. I said media, TV, newspaper, news agencies, radio. This stuff is all closed in Afghanistan. You imagine more than 100. I do not exactly remember the exact number of that. How many employers are working there? Imagine how many journalists were working. So now most of them are having job. So this is the things that the freedom of speech are going in Afghanistan. Most of our excellent journalists are living outside of Afghanistan, working as like in a restaurant and other stuff. They are not now journalists. So when they are going to cover Afghanistan, it means they are blocking from every part of governments, terrorist governments that are existed or is in Afghanistan. So now, because of, I jumped into Jagoda's speech because of that, now the people want to know that what's going on in Afghanistan, as Afghani, what we are feeling, as Afghani, what we are knowing that what's happening in Afghanistan. So mostly that sometimes you're just hearing something, sometimes just you're reading something, but sometimes you're knowing everything and feeling that. That's very difficult things. You cannot imagine how Ukrainian people are feeling about the Kiev or other cities. So still, you are not imagining that how I missed my Kabul and other part of the city. Still, I'm as a journalist. So why I cannot go back to Afghanistan to work with Taliban or reporting the Afghanistan or the others? This is the big question. So on the other hand, many other international journalists are going reporting. That is good things. We are not blaming them or not asking why they are going. So let's be like this, that the audience that you have, maybe they are Polish or other citizens of the world, be the exact things that you are seeing and the exact things are happening in the countries. So mostly when the situation was changed in Afghanistan, Al Jazeera was the first news that the new media agency that covering Al Jazeera on the day that the Taliban came into Kabul and So why the Afghanistan national TV are not did that? So it means that they haven't right to express the idea and the other things. It means now we are just seeing the that of freedom of speech and human rights in Afghanistan. Thank you.
To może przejdziemy do języka polskiego. I will change to Polish, so to give Miss Safia a voice. Bo mówimy o mediach, ale chcielibyśmy też porozmawiać trochę właśnie o tym, jak ten głos poznać Afgańczyków i te emocje, te uczucia i wrócić też do tematu tego, co możemy robić dla Afgańczyków, jak wygląda ta sytuacja. Safia, ty znasz no, przynajmniej dziesiątki, jeśli nie setki Afgańczyków poznałaś w ostatnim roku, tak? Bo pomagasz tym, którzy przybyli z ewakuacji, tym, którzy są na polsko-białoruskiej granicy, tym, którym udało się uciec też w trakcie. No ja potrafię wyliczyć chyba z 5 rodzin tutaj w Krakowie, które gdzieś tam się pojawiały, tak, czy 7, tak, które ja 5 chyba poznałem, zdążyłem poznać. Powiedz, też odnieś się, bo często do mnie szeptałaś w trakcie, ale i też zapraszam Państwa, już przygotujcie sobie pytania tutaj na sali, też w komentarzach na Facebooku. Ja za chwilę zacznę czytać te pytania i też je przeczytamy. Przynajmniej będzie chwila też na pytania, to proszę o pytania.
Ja chciałabym jakby zamknąć dyskusję na temat pracy dziennikarzy i przypomnieć Państwu polską historię. Myślę, że każdy z Was bardzo dobrze zna i wie, jak było w latach 50., 60., później w latach 80. i dzisiejszy dzień. Każdy rząd, który chce rządzić w jakiś sposób, próbuje siebie lansować, więc wszystko jest kartkowane i w Afganistanie też od 40 lat, jak ja nie jeden raz byłam, tłumaczyłam polskim dziennikarzom, którzy przyjeżdżali do Kabulu, też było tak samo, że rząd, jak tylko dowiedział się, że jest dziennikarzem, to po prostu już pod nazwą tego, że muszą bezpieczeństwo ich zapewnić i tak dalej, po prostu prowadzili tam, gdzie oni chcieli, a nie gdzie dziennikarz mógł. Więc tu jeżeli Jagoda mówi tak, a nie inaczej, to nie znaczy, że ona nie widzi pewnych rzeczy, to po prostu też dla swojego bezpieczeństwa pewnych rzeczy nie jest w stanie powiedzieć. Więc musimy jej też zrozumieć, dlaczego tak pracuje, a nie inaczej. A talibowom zależy przede wszystkim na tym, żeby już ludzie nie mówili o nich jako terrorystów, tylko po prostu jako rząd, który oczekują, że lada chwila każde państwo ich uzna. Ja mam nadzieję, że nie uznają, bo nasze zdanie, myślę, że do tej pory, jak żeście słyszeli, jest tak samo. Ludzi, którzy do niedawna byli na listach terrorystów, dzisiaj rządzą Afganistanem i nagle się stali oświeceni, nie wiem z jakiej racji. Ludzie, którzy może ci są na czele talibów, mają jakieś wykształcenia, a reszta absolutnie żaden jest niewykształcony, więc kompletnie nie wiedzą, co robią, jak robią, co im popada w danej chwili, zachowują się tak, a nie inaczej. Tak samo jak przy pierwszym proteście kobiety w Afganistanie, w Kabulu, zaczęli bić kobietom i podszedł do nich dziennikarz i się pyta, dlaczego bijesz kobietom? No bo my nic innego nie umiemy, oprócz tego, żeby zabijać i bić. My potrzebujemy czasu na to, żeby się nauczyć rządzić. No ale państwo nie ma czasu na to. Ludzi, którzy od 40 lat w różnych sposobach są nękani, dzisiaj mają siedzieć i czekać jeszcze, aż talibowie się nauczą rządzić, no to przepraszam, nie o taki rząd oczekują ludzi, nie takiego rządu chcieliśmy. A co do sytuacji Polaków, którzy przyjechali do Polski, Polaków, Afgańczyków, którzy przyjechali do Polski, no, polski rząd łaskawie przeprowadził kilkaset, właściwie około 1000 paru ludzi z Afganistanu. No, ale niestety wobec nich nie był tak hojny jak wobec Ukraińców, którym otwarto wszelkie bramy i drzwi i wszelkie możliwości. Więc do dzisiejszy dzień są Afgańczycy, którzy jeszcze mieszkają w ośrodkach dla uchodźców, gdzie jeszcze nie jest ich sytuacja wyjaśniona. Są Afgańczycy, którzy już rok mija, nie mając żadnego kursu językowego, co uważam, że powinny na pierwszym planie być to, że uczysz się języka polskiego, potem dostaniesz prawo pobytu. Po prawo pobytu załatwiamy Ci kwestię pracy, przygotowujemy Cię w jakiś sposób do pracy i tak w dalszym ciągu tych ludzi doprowadzić do społeczeństwa polskiego. A tymczasem niestety większości z nich nie mają języka polskiego. Dzieci chodzą do szkół, owszem, ale bez pomocy nauczyciela, który by im tłumaczył co i jak, siedzą jak kołki i nie wiedzą co mają, co mówi do nich nauczycielka. A tymczasem dla dzieci Ukraińców są nauczyciele, są tłumacze, w ogóle no, wszelakie możliwości, jakie jest do dyspozycji rządu i państwa jest. Owszem, Afgańczykom pomagają takie organizacje jak Salam Lab, jak Granica, jak innych ludzi dobrej woli, które sami się zbierali, sami zwołali się i powiedzieli, że pomagamy i oni owszem pomagają, jestem im wdzięczna. Często też mają problemy językowe, a ja dzisiaj, właściwie nie dzisiaj, od roku czasu jestem ich językiem, bo za każdym razem za pomocą translatora tłumaczą sobie z perskiego na polski, czy z polski na perski, a potem jak się nie dogadują, to nawet o 12 w nocy dostaję telefon, pomóż nam, bo nie możemy się porozumieć, o co chodzi. Więc tak wygląda sytuacja moich rodaków, które są w Polsce i no na razie niestety nielicznym się udało znaleźć pracę. Jeszcze w większości szukając swoje miejsce, gdzie, co i jak, nie jest łatwo, nawet jeżeli są wykształcone, mają dokumenty i tak dalej, to niestety przystosowanie tych dokumentów do warunków Polski i do pracy, które oni by chcieli, to jest bardzo, bardzo trudno i czasochłonne i niestety nie ma żadnej jakiejś takiej organizacji, czy jakiś, nie wiem co to można... Rząd właściwie umywa ręce, przywiózł ich, posadził ich do ośrodkach i na tym się kończy jego zadanie. Niby jest jakiś program integracyjny, na które po roku czasu wpłacili im pieniążki i instytucje pomocy społecznej mówi, że no przecież macie pieniądze, teraz trzeba się uczyć języka. Po roku czasu i lada dzień im się kończy te pomocy z integracji, a ci ludzie ani nie znają języka, przede wszystkim nie ma takich kursów. Ludzie są rozrzucone po różnych miastach. W jednym mieście jest nauczycielka, kto chce by nauczyć, w drugim mieście w ogóle nie ma takiej osoby, więc problemów mają ogromnej ilości i no, mam nadzieję, że jakoś im się uda. Część z nich oczywiście wyjechało poza Polską, bo po prostu sobie nie radzili tutaj. Stwierdzili, że tu nie ma żadnej organizowanej pomocy dla nich, więc pojechali, a często zostali. Jeszcze próbują jakoś doprowadzić do ładu swojego życia. Jak im będzie dalej, to niestety ja nie jestem w stanie powiedzieć jak, bo pomocy jest rzadko. Proszę.
Yeah, so Safia was talking about some Afghans were left the country, left Poland. Some of them decided to stay. So I will ask a question about it. Ale jeśli Państwo mają jakiekolwiek pytania, za chwilę będzie ten czas. Tak samo do Państwa na Facebooku też kieruję prośbę o pytania. Przeczytałem komentarze. So the question, Nilofar, Bismillah, Nasrat, you are a bit shorter, but Nilofar, you are here almost a year, right?
Yes.
Why did you decide to stay in Poland, not to go to Germany, as majority of Afghans who came last year, because of the bad situation, bad conditions, which Safia was talking about, they decided to go?
Well, I have told this in many interviews, even in my book, but I will say this one more time, that Poles and Poland was the first country who responded to my request. I decided to leave Afghanistan exactly on the 18th of August. I was still waiting that what will happen. I had no intention to leaving my country. And as I said, I had no contacts, of course, to any other country because I was not part of that circle. But the moment this journalist from Radio 375, Michal Żakowski, he had an interview with me, and right after the interview, he called me and said, "Do you have anywhere to go?" I said, "No." And it took him and the Poles 3 days to put me on the list, and with my 2 days trial, 5 days. So in total of 5 days, I could save my kids and my family. And as a gratitude, I decided to stay in Poland, no matter how hard it is, even though the language is very hard to learn. So far, I'm still in Dzień dobry. But for me, Poland has been more than kind. The moment I stepped in Poland, of course, the situation in the Grupa camp was not ideal, but this is a refugee life and we couldn't expect more than that. But in 2 months, friends helped me to find a home. Karol was the first to travel from Krakow to bring a stroller for my daughter, who was 11 months old. And because I had so much kindness that I decided to stay. And not only stay, but I want to repay what I have received. So here I am in Poland. Soon I will be starting my small business. And of course, I have started working since December in one of the foundation called Fundacja Humanusz. And through that, I was fortunate to be able to travel to Kiev to help Ukrainians, to be involved with them. And I'm proud to say that I managed to pay the taxes quite early and quite soon, just to be a good citizen.
Thank you. It's the same question?
Yeah, I think it's the same.
Okay.
I was just translating for Safia, and I was giving more details about the trip to Warsaw with stuff.
Okay. I have a question. Why we cannot stay in Poland with these nice people, with these good people in this country?
You are too diplomatic, yeah.
It's my answer. Just finished.
I believe there are many challenges of migration policy.
There is challenge, but all life is challenge for every people's. Everyone, they have challenge for our life. But for refugees, it's a double challenge. For Afghan refugees, triple challenge. And unfortunately, for refugees who have a big family, it's 4-time challenge. Carolina knows this one because she helped me to find the apartments. I think I have a memory. 15th of August in Afghanistan was bad day. Those day was next bad day for me. When we received order from the refugee camp to leave the refugee camps, when we asking why and where we should go, they said, everywhere you can want. It was a bad time. Maybe 15th of August and the last year, we lost everything in Afghanistan, but we know where we can go, with who we can take a contact. But in the Poland, we don't know everything. When we receive the order from the refugee camps, we have to leave this camp. It was a bad situation, but we still here in the Poland. We know a lot of Afghans who are not now in the Poland. They are in the other countries, and some family is back in Afghanistan, unfortunately, because they didn't receive any support from the governments, and some other organizations. They leave Poland back to Afghanistan. I don't know they have a good situation or not. I believe in Afghanistan nobody don't have a good situation under control of the terrorism and the regime of the Taliban. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ja dodam może jeszcze od siebie i takie ostatnie krótkie pytanie Safii zadam, ale jakby te słowa pokazują, bo chciałem zadać pytanie, co my jako Polacy, tak, możemy zrobić dla Afgańczyków w Afganistanie, dla Afgańczyków w Polsce, ale teraz w sumie sam sobie pomyślałem, że każda z odpowiedzi to będzie tylko taka doraźna pomoc i w żadnym przypadku, oczywiście w Afganistanie nie ma na to szans. W Polsce zawsze taka pomoc będzie tylko doraźna, to będzie takie lepienie plasterka na uciętą rękę. Nie? To system migracji i pomocy migrantom w Polsce nie istnieje. Znaczy, wyobraźmy sobie sytuację, w której jesteśmy w obcym kraju, uciekliśmy z Polski otoczonej wojną i jedziemy, nie wiem, gdziekolwiek i w tym obcym kraju dają nam te 700 zł i idź sobie gdzie chcesz. Możesz sobie iść gdzie chcesz. No super, nie? Zero pomocy, zero lekcji języka, lekcje prawa, lekcje kultury, nic, nie? I Anna Dąbrowska z Homo Faber używa takiego sformułowania na pomoc Ukraińcom po inwazji rosyjskiej na Ukrainę. Używa tego sformułowania, że te wszystkie rzeczy, które się dzieją, to ten punkt pomocy, który tutaj mamy, to są wszystko prywatne inicjatywy, tak? Prywatna inicjatywa Safii, Julii, Marty, Karoliny, tutaj jest kilka osób z nas, którzy pracują na co dzień. I nie ma państwa w tym przypadku, tak jak z tą Odrą, nie? Której ryby płyną tonami, też nie ma państwa. I to jest przerażające, ale Safia, mimo wszystko możecie w trudnej sytuacji, przepraszam, znowu zostałem, ale powiedz, masz to doświadczenie pomocy uchodźcom przybywającym z ewakuacji, przybywającym innymi drogami, przybywającym przez polsko-białoruską granicę, bo tam też jest dużo Afgańczyków. Co my możemy robić? W co się zaangażować? Tak, co byś podpowiedziała szarym Polakom i Polkom?
Ja myślę, że
Before you answer, I want to be less diplomatic. I can get in trouble. But one of the reasons I felt like home in Poland because I was still living in Afghanistan, but maybe 2-3 decades modern. Because some of the laws, some of the rules which are being implemented here seem like my country. When I entered Poland, I heard that the school curriculum was going to change. I saw a lot of troubles for LGBTQ community. I see that women are still struggling in Poland, and in the government, women are not so much liked, unfortunately. I know I will be boycotted by the government for this, but these are the things I noticed, and I thought, okay, if I couldn't continue my fight back in my country, I will stay here and continue here. I have attended some of the parades, some of the protests, but I couldn't dare to share my picture because I haven't got my passport yet. So I wouldn't want it to be deported. But yes, this is one of the reasons I feel more home here.
Thank you, Nilofar. I will talk about your book. Nilofar napisała książkę Wyrwana z piekła talibów, wydawnictwo Pruszyński. Bardzo polecam, bo to jest bardzo mocny głos bardzo silnej Afganki. Nilofar była jedną z tych osób, które do mnie pisały od razu, kiedy się zaczęła sytuacja na polsko-białoruskim pograniczu. Była właśnie Safia i Nilofar, która chciała jechać pomagać od razu. Ja jej powiedziałem, dla ciebie to nie jest bezpieczne, nie możesz tam jechać, bo z wiadomych powodów. Ale tak samo jak się zaczęła inwazja rosyjska na Ukrainę, ona pierwszego dnia do mnie dzwoni: Karol, ja chcę jechać do Lwowa, chcę pomagać. To jest taka osoba, bardzo polecam jej książkę. No. Safia, wracając do naszego pytania.
Wracając do naszego pytania, jest bardzo trudno co powiedzieć. Ja bym chciała Polakom, poniekąd rodakom, bo w końcu prawie 40 lat mieszkam w Polsce, prosić o to, bo na rządu nie jesteśmy w stanie liczyć, ale was proszę o to, żebyście otworzyli swoje serce tak samo jak Ukraińcom dla Afgańczyków też. Nieliczne rodziny afgańskie, co przyjechali tutaj, oni mają dużo dzieci. W przeciwieństwie do polskich rodzin są wielodzietne i niestety mamy ogromne trudności ze znalezieniem mieszkania dla tych ludzi. Ja nie rozumiem, rozumiem poniekąd, że boją się, że może zepsuć ich mieszkania, niszczyć cokolwiek i tak dalej, ale przecież można tak samo kaucję prosić jak w przypadku normalnych Polaków, ale pozwolić im mieszkać po ludzku, normalnie, chociażby w 3-4-pokojowym mieszkaniu, a nie to, że rodzina, gdzie ma 7 dzieciaków, mieszka w dwóch pokojach akademickich albo w jednym i nie mają żadnych warunków do przetrwania dalsze tutaj. Przecież te dzieci kiedyś będą tak samo obywatelami Polski. Wątpię, żeby w przeciągu 2, 3, 5 lat talibowie nagle zniknęli z historii, z mapy Afganistanu i Afganistan był tak otwarty, żeby ci ludzie wracali z powrotem. Mówię dlatego to, bo jak ja skończyłam studia, przyjechałam do Polski na studia. Chciałam tutaj skończyć studia, wracać do Afganistanu. Skończyłam studia, było rząd talibów. Ja nie miałam w jaki sposób wracać. Zwłaszcza, że wówczas mój paszport był zamknięty Polska, Związek Radziecki i Afganistan. I po prostu miałam zamkniętą drogę. Musiałam zostać w Polsce. Założyłam tutaj sobie rodzinę, żyję do dziś dzień. I jest mi ogromnie przykro, że dochodzę jakby starego wieku i nagle znowu jest rząd talibów. Znowu te same przerażające rzeczy, które się działo wówczas, teraz też się dzieje. Z tym, że mądrzyli o jeden krok. Bo dawniej jak na stadionie cięli ludziom gardła i zabijali, powieszali po ulicach, to dzisiaj tego nie robią. Robią to po ciemku, czyli w środku nocy wchodzą bez pardonu do czyjegoś domu, zabierają, zastrzelają, rzucają do rowu i uważają, że to nie my. Więc rząd jest ten sam rząd. Ci ludzie potrzebują waszej pomocy i ludzi w Afganistanie też. Nie wiem w jaki sposób mam prosić, nie wiem kogo mam prosić, żeby otworzyli, pozwolili wysyłkę pieniędzy oficjalne do Afganistanu. Jest ogromne trudności, żebym ja na przykład jakbym mogła chociaż $100 wysyłać raz na jakiś czas dla swojej rodziny, to ja nie mam takiej możliwości. Wcześniej było Western Union działał, dzisiaj nagle wszystko jest zamknięte i nie ma nawet tej możliwości. Więc trudności jest ogromne. Jagoda mówiła o jakiejś tam grupie ludzi, którzy pomagają dzieciakom, próbują jakieś szkoły otworzyć i tak dalej. Ja wierzę, że może są tacy, co jeszcze jakby w podziemiu uczą dzieciaki, ale na ile to jest skuteczne, nie wiem. Na dzisiejszy dzień wiem jedno, że w Afganistanie ludzie nie mają co jeść, nie mówiąc o tym, żeby chcieli się uczyć. Więc jest naprawdę bardzo trudno. Jeżeli macie jakiekolwiek wpływy, możecie w czymkolwiek pomóc, pomóżcie chociażby tych, co tutaj przyjechali. Oni są z różnymi problemami. Większość z nich mają ogromne problemy psychiatryczne, nie radzą sobie tutaj. Niektórzy już są aż zanadto chcą pomóc i już wymuszają, na przykład żołnierzy, którzy przyjechali, przywieźli prosto z poligonu do Polski, ich dzieci i żony są w Afganistanie. oni nie mieli świadomości, że na przykład mają 6 miesięcy do tego, żeby swoje dzieci i żony sprowadzać do Polski, a po 6 miesiącach nie mają tego prawa. Ja nie rozumiem dlaczego. W sytuacji, kiedy nie mają pracy, nie mają mieszkania, sprowadzenie rodziny, to też jest następnym problemem. Tych problemów jest ogromne. Nie wiem, jakbym liczyła, może nawet czasu nam zabraknie.
Może są jeszcze jakieś pytania w sali? Jest jedno pytanie.
Chciałam się trochę wtrącić, Karol. Chciałam poprosić Państwa o brawa dla Safii, bo ona z nami pracuje bardzo ciężko, jest bardzo też emocjonalnie zaangażowana i chciałabym tak, żebyśmy wszyscy razem docenili jej pracę.
Dziękuję.
Ogromne dzięki, Wiktoria. Dzięki, Safia. Czy są jakieś pytania? Jeśli nie, jest jedno pytanie z Facebooka dotyczące, and I think maybe I can ask it in English. Chodzi o sytuację medyczną dziewczynek i kobiet w Afganistanie. What is the medical situation of women and girls in Afghanistan right now? It's a question from a person who works with a doctor who has to hide herself in Afghanistan because she used to work for women and girls.
Well, the same situation you see for the women activists and journalists, it's the same for women doctors. Depends on which part you are, from which ethnicity you are, from which city you are. Mostly in Pashtun areas, you will not see a woman doctor because most of these girls have been uneducated past 20 years because of the Taliban presence in their cities or villages. But when you go to non-Pashtun areas, of course, Tajiks and Hazaras are being hunted down. And wherever you see an educated person from this community, they will not be able to survive. There is a high rate of maternity deaths now. And there was a report from Badakhshan, I guess, that every day, at least, and there's high rate of birth, unfortunately, because there's no birth control or awareness enough. And almost from 100 child which is born, 90 of these children will go to the incubator because of the mother's health condition, because of the malnourishment, and most of these pregnancies or these labors are early births because the mother cannot survive like this, and the mental stress is too much. But unfortunately, in my country, a woman cannot say that she has prepartum depression because then she will be perceived as someone who's crazy. Even in the past 20 years in the villages, it was impossible. A woman couldn't say that, oh, I am pregnant, so I can have hormone changes, so I can act abnormal. While it's completely normal, even in period, in European countries, you are excused if you scream, if you get angry, if you get upset. But in my country, even on the day of birth in the labor room, you're not allowed to scream too loud because the mother-in-law will judge you, because the people will judge you. The situation is quite worse in my country. We weren't in a better place, but we were somewhere at least. And now it's very worse. And for anyone who's educated, it's impossible to survive in that country because the country is now run by a bunch of baboons. This is the reality.
Thank you. Czy są jakieś pytania? Bo wydaje mi się, że tutaj there are a lot of comments and I think you should read the comment section after. Czy są jakieś pytania na sali? To jest po polsku.
Last week in office, it was in our colleagues. They said in Poland, in the meetings, nobody asking some question.
Yeah.
I think it's true. Okay, please.
Somehow a little bit change that situation, because I agree with you about that. So, and this is a question about Afghan community which lives outside Afghanistan. Do you think that maybe is it somehow possible, real, that for example the people who were forced to emigrate, to leave your country, that for example you can somehow support your community at place? Is it possible? I'm thinking about like different fields. It can be about also like logistical, political, financial support, or maybe there is any other leaders who are right now outside and maybe that they can somehow support Afghani.
Thank you to starting the question and changing the culture of the Polish and the meetings. Unfortunately, we don't have such organization outside of the Afghanistan as Jews and other ethnicities or other communities. We have just a different diaspora who are living in the different countries. They want to support the Afghans, but it's not a strategic plan or for long-term plan to support the Afghans refugees in outside. Now a lot of Afghans still in Islamabad and Tehran in neighbor countries. They're just looking for a humanitarian visa to be safe. Because in Iran, they're just issuing 3 months visa for Afghans. After 3 months, you have to go back to Afghanistan. And in Pakistan also, they don't issue any visa for those Afghans who are inside of Afghanistan. If you're asking for visa as a tourist or like this in the Pakistan country, it take months for issuing visa for you. It's legally free, but you have to pay for this visa for the Pakistans. When you're going to Islamabad or Tehran, when you're asking some embassies for humanitarian visa, like Poland embassies, they refuse it. They're asking a lot of documents. They're asking some different documents, and it means they don't want to help you for the humanitarian visa. And we have a lot of thousands Afghan refugees in Indonesia. They still, in 10 years, they still for humanitarian support, humanitarian visa from the different countries. Unfortunately, they didn't have any support. They didn't receive any support from some countries or organizations. And also we have a lot of Afghan refugees in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. They still waiting for humanitarian visa to be safe. In Kazakhstan also, and some neighbor countries. And also we have a lot of refugees in Turkey, in Greece, in some different countries of Europe. They still waiting for humanitarian support, humanitarian carta papata, like this. But they didn't issue for them. They're asking a lot of documents, or why your life is in danger inside of Afghanistan. I think it's not the time to asking for Afghan. Your life is under the dangers in the Afghanistan. Yes, of course. But still in Europe countries and other countries, they're asking for Afghan refugees. Really, your life is under danger in Afghanistan? If not, you can go one day in the Kabul. They're asking, prove it this, your life is dangerous. Yes, the Taliban sent me official documents, official letter I killing you. They're asking like these documents for Afghan refugees. As Afghans, I requested for all community, Europe communities, countries, and organizations like Salam Lab, please help with the refugees, especially those refugees who don't have any other choice, like Ukrainian and Afghans, and Syrians and other countries in the war. Especially, unfortunately, the Afghan refugee situation is very different than other refugees. Yes, all of this human, all of this, they need supports, but the current situation is very difficult for Afghans, especially Afghan women activists, especially Afghan journalists, Afghan member of police force and army, who was 20 years in the first line of counter-terrorism with the Taliban. But this terrorism is in the power now in Afghanistan. They're killing them. It's okay for you?
Yes, but I was also thinking rather also about Afghani, for example, activists who are already living outside Afghanistan, and maybe that those people who are involved, maybe are they or they are not? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's that I was thinking maybe rather also about Afghani activists, Afghani journalists, politicians maybe, who are living already outside Afghanistan, and that somehow they can, I'm not sure that if they can, involve themselves into support their community in Afghanistan. Is it possible?
Yes, so this question, I can answer this to you because from the moment I entered Poland, from the first place where we were in quarantine, I started my activism. We can, but you know, it's impossible to do it with the help of you as a European citizen. I had a friend named Laia Marcel. She is a Spanish woman. She and Michal Jakowski helped me to be here because they created a file for me, they made the dossier, they prepared everything. We do not know how to prepare a file for the embassy. We have no experience in that, so we need you. She was the one that for the 1 year long, she didn't sleep, she didn't work anywhere, and she kept searching and researching laws and everything in Spain. And she single-handedly managed to evacuate 70 Afghan activists. We did it together without a single penny from any organization. We also didn't have money, but we kept trying. We got the interviews for them once they were in Pakistan, and then that's where we both started to volunteer to certain NGOs and said, we will work as a volunteer for you. Since you're working for Afghan refugees or evacuees, give them shelter. So we kind of barter things. Like there's this new NGO called Miles, who receives donations of miles from people that you have an airline mile and you donate it, and then through that they will book a ticket for anybody who has visa to a third country or to a final destination. This is not an easy process. This takes a long, long time and a lot of effort, but you can do it. Now that in Warsaw, Fundacja Okalansi, I can pronounce the Polish name, I'm sorry, but Karol's friend is working there. He is a Fundacja Ocalenia, yes. So they have provided free lawyer and they are working on family reunification. And I see quite a lot of success, and I see a lot of visas being provided for the first families. And any other organization, NGOs can do that. You can pay for the lawyer and the lawyer will do his or her job. So these are the ways that you can help. It's not that your government will not want to do it, but they want reason. And who else know better than a immigrant lawyer of your own country who knows the laws? And he will create the papers in a way that the consul could not say no to the visa. So we need to work on this. And at the same time, I would want to request that before evacuating any more refugees, please take a moment, think about those refugees who are already in your country. A lot of Afghans are suffering in Poland. There are a number of students in Poland that we, through this Humanish Foundation and some donation, managed to put them in Polish language classes in Warsaw Medical University. But they don't have a place to stay and they don't have anything to eat. whatever, the only thing they have is those 750 zloty that the government pays, which is now stopped.
IP, yeah.
Yes.
Integration programs.
Yeah, that's stopped, and now it's only the integration program. And house rents, you know how high it is. We could manage a small shelter for them just before coming here. I took some of these students there, but this is just a roof on their head. We need money to feed them. So they could continue their studies, they could learn English, and then they could enter the society. When I'm talking about these refugees, they are doctors, they are engineers, they're journalists, they're not just 12th grade pass. They have degrees, but because of the language barrier, they cannot enter the society, and they cannot communicate. So first we are working on their language skills so they could proceed for normal life. These are the ways that I alone, or Miss Safia alone, or Carol alone cannot do it. We need help of each one of you. We do not ask you to pay thousands. If you see any donation link for Afghans, even you can start from 50 zloty. That will mean a lot for a refugee. Each 50 can feed one person, and then it can be a huge thing. So this is the thing that I see less and less, and in fact, I don't see a lot anymore. Since February, since Ukraine situation happened, even we were kicked out of homes. We were kicked out of refugee centers. And nobody was ready. Whenever I used to talk that, okay, Afghans are suffering, I would say Afghan is old news. Yeah. Now Ukraine is trending. Why should a war in a country be a trend? These are humans' lives at stake. And I don't want to compare Ukraine's situation to Afghanistan because this is as unfortunate as to us. It's even more unfortunate because they're in Europe. And this is happening to them. But of course, I feel pain for my people. My people struggled to have a pair of clothes because we had to run literally with one backpack. But when I see when there is a Ukrainian situation involved, it's overflowing. I'm not invading that, I'm not against that, but I ask those NGOs or foundations involved with this, when you see this is extra, don't waste it. Give it to Afghans, give it to Syrians, give it to Belarusians. There are other refugees from other countries who are suffering. Don't just overflow or force it on people. I have seen the situation that people didn't want it to receive anymore because it was too much. But they were forced to receive it because, no, this is for Ukrainians. So don't do that. I see that Ukrainian people are very good people. They don't take more than what they need. So don't waste what is left. Give it to other refugees. Share it. So like this, the burden will be less and less on other peoples. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we need to finish, but...
Carol, if advance don't have question, I have a question for you. It is, I think, 2 hours we discuss about the Afghanistan and situation of Afghanistan. Are you agree to send official letters from the end of this event to President of the Poland and the government of the Poland do not recognize Taliban until they didn't open the school for the girls, until they don't open freedoms and for the speech, and until they change these situations? If you are agree, I think you are ready to do it, this paper or this letter for the President of the Republic of Poland and Prime Minister of the Republic of Poland to request them, please do not recognize, do not support, and do not help any talibs. Do not issue a visa for the leaders of the Taliban, because 4 months ago, the leaders of the Taliban was in Oslo with the private charter flight from the Norway government. I don't like it's happening in Warsaw or the Krakow. It will be a private charter airplane from Kabul to Warsaw for the leader of the Taliban. Yeah, from the people's tax money. It's happened in the different countries. There's still right of movement to different countries in Uzbekistan and other countries. The leader of the terrorist group. If you are agree, please sign these documents, these letters to President of the Republic of Poland. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to be clear, I will tell it in Polish. Proszę nawet imię, nazwisko, maila zostawić i my się odezwiemy z tym tekstem tej petycji po prostu przygotowanej przez pana Tabana, przez Nilofar i wyślemy maila, w którym już będzie to właściwy tekst petycji i będzie wiadomo też pod czym się podpisujemy. I też ją opublikujemy oczywiście na stronie.
Just one things. You know the money of the Afghanistan is printing in the Poland? The currency of the Afghans is printing in the Poland. And also the passport of Afghanistan is printing in the Poland. I heard some news the Taliban have planned to print again the money and currency, new currency, with it means with the Poland governments. Maybe they change the governments, but they need to print this currency for her life, to continue the close the schools for girls and other things inside of Afghanistan. This letter will be showing your reaction with against the Taliban's to doing inside of Afghanistan as women, because there is a lot of women. Are you agree to be close your school for your daughters or for you or university? Absolutely no. Please do it. It is thankful for these meetings and the result of these meetings. Thank you.
Tak, chcemy, żeby też był jakiś rezultat tego spotkania konkretny. Pan Taban dzisiaj właśnie zasugerował, żeby taką petycję przygotować, że są te plany w związku z produkcją pieniędzy talibów w Polsce, w mennicy polskiej. No zobaczymy. Także zachęcam Państwa, żeby tą petycję podpisać. Ona się też pojawi u nas w mediach. Bardzo dziękuję naszym gościniom i gościom. Many thanks for coming. Bardzo dziękuję ekipie przygotowującej z Teatru Słowackiego. Bardzo dziękuję Wiktorii za tłumaczenie i wszystkim pozostałym, Marcie, Julii za pomoc w przygotowaniu. Karolinie jeszcze nie dziękuję, ale może powinienem z góry podziękować, jak będziemy sprzątać, to pewnie Karolina też nam pomoże i wszystkim tym, którzy nam pomogą posprzątać. Wszystkim tym, którzy są offline, którzy są z nami tutaj, oczywiście zapraszamy na poczęstunek. Będzie też można poznać dwie nasze młodsze przyjaciółki z Afganistanu, które tam są wśród nas, zobaczyć ich piękne suknie, porozmawiać z Safią, porozmawiać z panami Tabanami, porozmawiać z Nilofar. Jeszcze tu chwilę będziemy, a serdecznie pozdrawiam i dziękuję za obecność tym, którzy nas oglądali na live'ie. Dobrej nocy, bardzo dziękuję.